The doctors at the VA hospital told me my heart stopped for 17 minutes. 17 minutes. In the Army, you learn what can happen in 17 seconds, let alone 17 minutes. But what they don't know is that in that time, I wasn't here. I was standing before Jesus Christ, and He showed me what's coming. He told me to watch Iran, not for a missile launch, not for a declaration of war. He showed me an internal collapse, a crisis inside the country that the world will celebrate as a victory for peace. And He said, "Harold, that is the trigger. That is the beginning of the end." But for you to understand the sheer weight of what He revealed, you need to know how I ended up there. My name is Harold. I'm 79 years old, and I gave 25 years of my life to the United States military, studying enemy tactics and global strategy. I was a practical man. I believed I understood power. If you feel that God is revealing His plans in these last days, I ask you to subscribe and turn on your notifications, because this message is urgent. Let me know in the comments. Have you been watching the news and feeling that something deeper is going on? What Jesus showed me about Iran's collapse is so specific, it will change how you read the headlines forever. And I will share every detail with you. But that was only the beginning. He then revealed the unholy alliance that will rise from the ashes of that chaos, a coalition of nations that, from a military perspective, makes no sense at all. But to grasp the reality of these visions, you first have to understand what happened on that Tuesday morning in the hospital room. You have to understand how I died and how I was given a mission to come back and tell you all of this. To understand why Jesus showed me, a 79-year-old soldier, the future of Iran, you have to understand the man I was. My name is Harold. For over 2 decades, I lived by maps and intelligence reports. I spent countless hours in sterile briefing rooms, pointing at satellite images of that very same region, thinking I knew every move on the board. I saw the world as a game of geopolitical chess. My faith? It was for Sunday mornings with my wife, Eleanor. It was a comfort, a quiet tradition. I never once thought it was the actual playbook for the wars I studied. I was a practical man. I believed in what I could see: troop movements, supply lines, political alliances built on mutual interest. I saw the Berlin Wall go up, and I saw it come down, and I believed it was all the work of men and nations, of power and strategy. Even after I retired, I'd sit in my old leather armchair every morning, coffee in hand, watching the news. I'd analyze every headline coming out of the Middle East, thinking I still had a grasp on things. I saw Iran as a strategic problem to be managed, a rogue player in a human game. That Tuesday morning, none of that mattered. I was in the VA hospital, recovering from what the doctors called a routine heart procedure. The worst was supposed to be over. Eleanor was sitting by my bed, quietly reading a book. I was just lying there, listening to the steady beeps of the machines, feeling more annoyed by the hospital gown than anything else. I was thinking about getting home, back to my chair, back to my news. I had no idea that I was just moments away from the most important briefing of my entire life, and it wouldn't be coming from a general. It started without warning, not a sharp, stabbing pain like you see in the movies, but a deep, immense pressure in my chest. It felt like a concrete block was being slowly lowered onto me, squeezing the air, squeezing the life right out of my lungs. I tried to lift my hand, to call out Eleanor's name, but my muscles wouldn't obey. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. The last thing I heard from this world was the steady beep of the heart monitor next to me, suddenly changing its rhythm, accelerating into a frantic alarm, and then holding one long, piercing final note. Then, silence. The pressure was gone. In fact, everything was gone. I felt a gentle lift, a sensation of release, like shrugging off a heavy, wet coat I'd been wearing for 79 years. I was floating. I looked down, and the sight was impossible. I was up near the ceiling, looking down at my own body lying in the hospital bed. I saw Eleanor's face, a mask of terror, as she screamed for the nurses. I saw them burst into the room with a crash cart, their faces grim and focused. It was all so calm from where I was, like watching a television show about someone else. I watched them work. I saw them put the paddles on my chest, saw my own body jump as the electricity shot through it. "No pulse," one of them shouted. "Starting compressions." I could see the sweat on the young doctor's brow as he pushed down on my sternum, trying to force my heart to remember its job. I tried to speak, to tell them it was okay, to tell Eleanor not to cry. But I had no voice. I was just a silent observer to my own death. They told me later, after it all, that they lost me for 17 minutes. As I hovered there, watching the frantic, desperate ballet of life-saving below, something else entered the room. A light started to bloom in the corner, not the harsh fluorescent light of the hospital, but something warm, golden, and alive. It didn't shine on things. It seemed to be a thing itself. It didn't hurt my eyes. It just invited me. The sounds of the doctors and the alarms began to fade into a distant hum as a gentle but undeniable force began to pull me away from my body, away from the room, and towards that beautiful, welcoming light. That pull was gentle, but there was no resisting it. I moved through that tunnel of light, and all the pain, all the years, just melted off me. The crushing weight on my chest was replaced by a feeling of complete wholeness, a health I hadn't felt even as a young soldier. It wasn't just light, it was warmth, it was life itself, and it hummed with a peace I can't describe. For a fleeting moment, I saw my father, who passed 20 years ago. He didn't speak, just smiled, a look that said, "Welcome home, son. You made it." I came out of the tunnel into a place that was more real than Earth. I was standing in a field of grass, but the green was a color I'd never seen before, deeper and more alive than any green on this planet. The air didn't just feel clean, it felt like I was breathing in pure joy. There was a melody in the air, but it didn't come from any instrument. It was a music that you felt in your soul, a song of perfect peace. I knew, without a doubt, that I was no longer in the world of men. Then he was there. A man stood before me, and it was nothing like the pictures. His skin was a warm olive tone, the kind you get from a life under a desert sun. His eyes were dark, and they didn't just look at me. They saw right through every wall I'd ever built, every secret I'd ever kept, and all they held was love. I didn't have to be told. My soul screamed his name, Jesus. My knees gave out from under me, and I just fell, weeping like a child, not from sadness, but from an overwhelming sense of being home. He let me weep for a moment. Then he placed a hand on my shoulder. The strength that flowed from that touch was incredible. He spoke my name, Harold. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried the authority of 1,000 generals and the love of a father. "Peace," he said. "What you saw in the world's armies is but a shadow. I am about to show you the reality. You are going back, but first you must see." And with those words, I knew my real briefing was about to begin, and it would change everything. He looked at me, and the world I knew dissolved. First, he showed me Iran, not on a map, but as a living, breathing place. I saw scenes of chaos erupting in the streets, not from an outside attack, but from within. The economy was in freefall, the people were rising up, and the regime was tearing itself apart in a brutal power struggle. I saw future news channels celebrating it, calling it the Persian Spring, a victory for freedom. But Jesus spoke to me, his voice cutting through the noise. "They see a political shift, Harold, but this is my hand breaking the bow of Elam, just as my prophet Jeremiah foretold. My mind, the mind of a soldier, was reeling. I had studied that region for decades, and this scenario, this specific internal collapse, was never on the table. Then the vision shifted. In the middle of that chaos, I saw the leaders of Russia and Turkey meeting in secret with the new, unstable power in Iran. It wasn't a normal political meeting. I saw dark, spiritual cords connecting them, pulsing with a shared, cold purpose. My training screamed that this alliance was impossible. Their national interests, their long-term goals, they don't align. It made no strategic sense from a human perspective, and I almost wanted to argue with him, but Jesus knew my thoughts. Their shared hatred for my people will unite them more than any treaty ever could, he explained. They are the coalition my servant Ezekiel prophesied would come from the north. I'm telling you this exactly as I saw it. As you listen to this, does it resonate with something you've been feeling? A sense that the news isn't telling the full story? If you feel the weight of this truth, please press that like button and let me know in the comments. It's more important than ever that we understand what's really happening behind the scenes, beyond what the media shows us. He then showed me the speed of it all. This unholy alliance wouldn't take years to form. It would happen almost overnight, using the power vacuum in Iran as the perfect excuse to move their pieces onto the board. The world would be so focused on the new democracy in Persia that they wouldn't see the armies gathering, the weapons being positioned. I saw the look on the faces of these leaders in the vision. It was a cold, predatory ambition, a chilling certainty in their mission. I felt a dread wash over me, the kind of dread you feel when you know a much bigger hidden attack is imminent. I stood there, speechless, a 79-year-old soldier finally seeing the true spiritual battle map laid out before him. The internal collapse of a nation wasn't the main event, it was the trigger. The impossible alliance wasn't a coincidence, it was a prophesied spiritual pact. Everything I thought I knew about global power was just a shadow of the reality he was showing me. But this revelation, as shocking as it was only the setup, the first move on the board. What Jesus showed me next was the great deception that would fool the entire world, and it was what made me fall to my knees a second time. I stood there, a soldier trying to process an impossible alliance, and then Jesus showed me how the world would be fooled. The vision shifted. I was watching dozens of news channels at once, all from the future. Tickers scrolled across the bottom of the screens with headlines like, "A New Era of Peace," and "Middle East Stability Pact Signed." Leaders were shaking hands, people were celebrating in the streets, but I felt a cold dread. Jesus then spoke, his voice grave. "They will say, 'Peace and safety,' but they have set a trap for my people. Destruction will come suddenly." I tried to ask him, how can they not see it? My military mind was screaming. It was a classic feint, a massive strategic misdirection. But he didn't answer with words. He let me feel what the world would feel, a wave of collective relief, a false hope that the great wars were finally over. It was intoxicating. And in that moment, I understood the power of the deception. It wasn't just a lie. It was a lie people would be desperate to believe. The world would be so focused on the new peace in Persia that they wouldn't see the real armies gathering in the shadows. Just as that cold fear threatened to swallow me whole, Jesus changed the vision completely. The images of world leaders and newsrooms dissolved. Suddenly, I was inside Iran, not in the halls of power, but in basements, in living rooms, hidden from sight. I saw the faces of men, women, and even children. They were on their knees, their hands lifted high. They weren't praying to Allah. I could hear their whispers, their songs. They were worshiping Jesus Christ. I saw a network of light spreading across the nation, an underground fire that the chaos on the surface could not extinguish. I looked at Jesus, my heart overwhelmed with a new emotion. Hope. He knew my question before I asked it. "This judgment is also a rescue mission, Harold," he told me. "The shaking of the nation is breaking the chains off my people. I am reaping a great harvest from Persia, fulfilling the seed that was planted when the Elamites heard my gospel at Pentecost. I saw it then. This wasn't just about war and destruction. It was about redemption. He was using the enemy's own plan to bring his lost children home. It was the most beautiful, intricate strategy I had ever witnessed. But then, he gave me the final, most critical piece of the puzzle. His expression became intensely serious, his eyes burning into mine. "Harold, tell my people not to fix their eyes on Iran," he commanded. "Iran is the smokescreen. The chaos is the excuse. The true target has always been and will always be Jerusalem." The vision shattered and reformed into a terrifying panorama. I saw a vast plain filled with the armies of that unholy alliance, their weapons pointed south. I saw tanks, soldiers, and flags I recognized, all massing for one single purpose: the invasion of Israel. The sheer scale of it broke me. The soldier in me, the man in me, it was all too much. I fell to my knees again, covering my face. "I can't watch this," I pleaded. The dread was a physical weight. But Jesus' voice cut through the terror, not with anger, but with absolute, unshakable authority. "They will come for the apple of my eye," he declared. "But on that day I will make Jerusalem an immovable rock for all the nations. All who try to move it will be broken." Those were the last things he showed me before telling me I had to go back. "Your mission is not over," he said, his voice resonating with a power that was both absolute and loving. "Go back. Tell them what you have seen. Warn them, but tell them not to fear. Tell them to prepare their hearts, for the King is coming." I looked at him, then at the perfect reality around me, and my soul screamed, "No." I didn't want to go back. Not to the pain, not to the world of shadows. "Please," I begged. "I'm just an old soldier. No one will listen. Send someone else." I was trying to bargain with the King of the universe, desperate to stay in that glorious peace forever. He didn't scold me. He simply kept his hand on my shoulder, a gesture of both comfort and command. His eyes held mine. "Harold," he said, and the way he spoke my name silenced all my arguments. "Because you are a soldier, you understand a briefing. Because you have studied the world's wars, you will know how to explain the real one. This is not a request. It is your final tour of duty. Go and tell them." In that moment, I understood. My life wasn't over. It had been repurposed. My mission was to deliver this intelligence, this divine warning, to anyone who would listen. The instant he gave the command, I was slammed back into my body. The transition was brutal, a violent collision of two realities. The peace of heaven was ripped away and replaced by an explosion of fire in my chest as the defibrillator paddles hit me again. The celestial music vanished, drowned out by the piercing scream of hospital alarms and the frantic shouting of doctors. I took a deep, ragged breath, and the simple act of air filling my lungs was agony. The weight of my own flesh, a feeling I hadn't noticed for 17 minutes, suddenly felt like a concrete tomb. My eyes flew open to the harsh glare of the fluorescent lights. The first face I saw was Eleanor's, her eyes wide with disbelief and soaked with tears. A young doctor was staring down at me, his mouth agape, whispering, "I don't believe it." I tried to speak, to tell them where I had just been. My throat was raw, but I managed to croak out the words, "I saw Jesus." Eleanor just squeezed my hand tighter, sobbing, "It's okay, Harold. You're just confused. You're back." That was the first time I tried to deliver my message, and the first time I understood that seeing the truth was easy. Getting others to believe it would be the real battle. In those first weeks back, the world tried to silence me. They told me I was confused, that the trauma of my heart stopping had played tricks on my mind. Eleanor, bless her heart, would just hold my hand and say, "Harold, Let's just focus on getting you well." My pastor was kind, but firm. He sat in my living room, patted my knee, and explained that God speaks through Scripture, not through these kinds of episodes. He meant well, but his words felt like a cage, locking the most important truth I had ever known inside of me. They saw a sick old man, not a messenger, but it was more than just disbelief from people I loved. Something else didn't want this story told. Twice I tried to record my testimony on a small tape recorder Eleanor bought me. Both times the machine just clicked and hissed, recording nothing but static. At night, my sleep was filled with heavy, oppressive dreams, not of war, but of a suffocating silence, a voice whispering that no one would ever listen, that I would die with this message unheard. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, feeling a presence in the room, a chilling certainty that I was being watched and warned. I almost gave up. I thought, maybe they're right. Maybe I am just an old soldier losing his mind. I sat in my armchair for weeks, silent, letting the world's noise drown out the memory. But I couldn't escape his eyes. I couldn't forget the feeling of his hand on my shoulder. One morning, his final words to me echoed in my head, as clear as the day he spoke them. "This is not a request. It is your final tour of duty." A tour of duty. That I understood. A soldier doesn't abandon his post. He doesn't disobey a direct order from his commander. So why am I telling you all this now, on this screen, to a stranger? Because I realize that if both the well-meaning people of this world and the dark forces beyond it fought so hard to keep me silent, then the message I carry must be terrifyingly important. It must be a truth the enemy does not want you to hear. The resistance wasn't a sign to stop. It was confirmation of the mission. What Jesus showed me about Iran, about the coming deception, and about his ultimate plan wasn't just for me, it was for you. And my tour isn't over until I've delivered it. And so I chose to obey my commander. I am telling you all this, looking you in the eye right now, because Jesus didn't send me back for my own sake. He sent me back for you, for the one who watches the news and feels a deep unease in your spirit, for the one who feels lost in all the noise and confusion. He saw your heart, he knew your questions, and he sent an old soldier back from the dead with a direct intelligence briefing. This wasn't a random experience, it was a message with your name on it. He showed me that the coming collapse in Iran is not a political event, it is the prophetic trigger. He showed me the unholy alliance that will rise from that chaos, a coalition that makes no sense to men, but perfect sense to the enemy. He warned that the world will be celebrating a great deception, crying, "Peace and safety," at the very moment the trap is sprung. And he made it perfectly, terrifyingly clear. Iran is the smokescreen. The chaos is the excuse. The true and final target has always been and will always be Jerusalem. But this is not a message of fear. It is a message of preparation. This is your briefing. First, you are to pray for the underground church in Iran, for the great harvest he is reaping amidst the fire. They are your brothers and sisters. Second, when you see this chaos unfold and the world celebrates peace, you are not to be deceived. You will know it is the trigger. And third, you are to fix your eyes on the King who is coming. The chaos is not a sign that things are falling apart. It's a sign that they are falling into place. If this message has armed your spirit, then your mission begins now. Don't let it stop here. Share this video with someone you love, with anyone who needs to understand the truth behind the headlines. Subscribe to this channel because there are more testimonies to come, and time is short. Those 17 minutes I spent on the other side weren't for me. They were a divine appointment, so that I could come back and tell you that the final battle is coming. But our commander has already won the war.